diplomats and so, but you are diplomats, right, in your own communities. And you have the power to leverage the interests of your people and meet the powers that be. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear brothers and sisters, distinguished men and women of God, this topic was not chosen by chance. It wasn't chosen by chance. So, I will open the floor. If you have any question for me, I will be happy to receive it. Thank you very much. It will be very nice to introduce yourself briefly, just your name and maybe your organization, so I know who I'm speaking to. And you ask your question or you make your contribution. Thank you. Maybe this session could last, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and I will leave you people.
I am Father Tatambui, Director of Communication for the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon. You use 3 words, which each time I hear, I get nervous. Unity, peace, diplomacy. These 3 words seem to me either just empty slogans, or we use them and give our own interpretation. We cannot talk unity unless we accept that we are different. Because if we are not different, we will talk uniformity, not unity. I get the impression that we talk in this country about unity, but we actually mean uniformity, which God himself did not even want. We need to redefine and understand our terms. The second one, which is at the background and at the basis of this forum, is peace. I'm getting a little bit uneasy when I hear peace. The very Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, in 1967, standing in the United States before those who were in prison, said, and I quote, "There can be no justice, no peace without justice." You cannot talk peace if you don't practice justice. You can talk from morning to evening, you'll be talking peace. But as long as there's no justice, there will be no peace. I had to change a whole topic of a discussion a few months ago on Mount Febe because they came also for peace. And I took up and I decided to talk about justice as the grammar for peace. You cannot conjugate peace without justice. It's not possible. We can talk from morning to evening. If we do not focus on justice, there will never be peace. Lastly, diplomacy. Again, and I'm sorry that sometimes I can be very brutal towards the diplomatic corps. When the thing gets fiery, just when we need the so-called diplomats, that's when they fly off. When there is peace, they now come talking humanitarian aid. I was in Bamenda with the UN people, and they told me their life first before they can talk humanitarianism. I also fear that this word diplomacy is used often to hide the ability to speak out. And so we say it is not what should be said, the truth should not be said, but the manner in which you say the truth. And so you say the truth with water in your mouth, and the real truth does not come out. Finally, you made mention of the religious and traditional rulers. Once you intimidate these and make them dependent on you, he who pays the piper decides the tune. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, 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 I will be taking your points one by one. You know, he made many points. This is a bit different. I'll be taking your points one by one. All right? I think what, I don't know, the name, Tata, Mr. Tata. Yes, Father Tata. Yeah, what he has just said is more about, you know, he was simply making a contribution, not actually a question, but it's more about his concern, right? When we are talking about, you know, peace, diplomacy, and so on. And when he looks around us, he looks around his community, around his people, there is nothing that resembles peace, right? Why? Because of the absence of justice. And the so-called, like he's saying, to so-called diplomats, diplomacy, we also tend to ask ourselves the question, what role are they actually playing in all of this? Are they simply playing games or so? Most of the times it is said that conflicts, especially war, is as a result of the failure of diplomacy, right? And partly it is partly correct. Why? Because we should understand that as human beings, so long as we interact with others, there is bound to be conflict between us, among us, between nations, and so on, right? The difficulty or the bad side of it is when we don't take appropriate action and we allow this conflict to degenerate into their negative potential, which is then the violence that we see, the wars that we see. We have what we call preventive diplomacy, that is trying to intervene even before, you know, we see the outbreak of the conflict situation. But most of the times, our government, together with the international development partners, simply react. Are we together? Simply react to conflict situation rather than being what? Proactive. Rather than adopting a preventive mindset. We sit and cross our hands. We want to do business as usual and believe that the current conflict we are having is the same as the one we had 20 years ago, for example. And that in the conflict we had 20 years ago, nothing was done. But are we not in peace? We lived in peace. And the people got tired, right? This is usually the approach. But no two conflicts are the same. Every conflict is unique. We may then be surprised. Why is it that in the past we've had some kind of conflict? We do not do the right thing, we do not intervene on time, but somehow it did not degenerate to the kind of things we are seeing today. Why? Because the case of this particular conflict we are having have taken a different dimension and different deep-rooted causes. These are some of the things. And like you are saying, you are right. We really cannot be talking about peace without any form of justice. Without any form of justice. But then, are we going to say that, okay, because there's no justice, because justice has not been done, we are not going to work for peace? Is that it? Okay, because we need justice in this situation, right? My relative has been killed. We need justice. Has been slaughtered. We need justice. Without justice, there is no peace between me and my neighbor. I don't think so. It is central. It is very important. But nothing is more important than striving, right, to live together peacefully and in harmony. What Mr. Joe was just saying, that as a result of the conflict that is taking place in our societies today, people who had issues with one another because of maybe a cock that was stolen 10 years ago will imagine that you stole my cock, I'm going to deal with you. That tells us that what? You know, conflict situation, in most conflict situations, we simply end, right, at the level of the consequence, what we are seeing, without the deep-rooted causes that remain psychological. So those two neighbors thought that they were not living in peace. But when the opportunity came, right, it became clear that they were not living in peace. So what I'm trying to say is that in every conflict situation, there are deep-rooted factors that must be tackled. If we do not do that, somehow we are simply playing, right, business as usual. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Prof, for really speaking free-mindedly from the angle you spoke. That's Pastor Jumbuin Enoch, okay, Reverend Jumbuin Enoch, okay, of the Cameroon Baptist Convention. Okay. Thank you for speaking freely, and from the way you presented, you didn't want to, you are not pushing us to a position that you have a priori, but rather just addressing the things. Thank you for that. And then raising the fact that blessed are the peacemakers. Jesus made that statement, and the church upholds it, or at least the faith communities want to uphold this and practice it. That is why in the different churches you have people from all sorts, and they learn to go together. Not blessed are the peace lovers. The things that are challenging peace, but two questions. One is in our illustration. Assuming that everybody here has a child, if you spank...
Pardon? Every colleague here?
Assuming that everybody has a child or has lived with a young child.
Okay.
If you spank the child and the child starts crying, and then you hold the cane and say, stop. And the neighbor is no longer hearing noise. Is that child at peace? Number two, the challenges to peace, especially in Cameroon. You use the expression, maybe I miss it, but so-called elites. And so-called elites. And then I will add the word, the politically interested people. The politically interested people, when they are getting to the villages, to the different places, they are presenting political agenda and presenting issues that should give them opportunities for eventual rise to maybe power. And it is not building peace. It is rather they want to pass their interest. Our prayer is, may God help us, that we really turn, as you said, to those who have no interest in appointments, to become really people that can be used to speak peace and speak it right, and what is wrong, wherever it comes from. We pray God will help our country and our generation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just 1 second. Please, I've already given us my methodology, because I won't be able to be taking all the points. I want to be sure that when you speak, I address your point. All right? Please. Thank you very much, Pastor Enoch, for your points, and especially for your example you gave, that if you have a little child in the house and this little child is crying, maybe, and then you decided to use a cane to whip the child, that is this child at peace? I would say no. No. If the child would simply be pretending to be at peace, right? Because of the cane. The child cannot talk, the child cannot cry, and the neighbor may think that the child is at peace, but no, right? The child will simply be pretending. Why? Because normally we say that violence begets violence, right? If the child has a concern, you are the father, you are the mother, this child has a concern, the child wants to dialogue with the father or with the mother, and you don't have time for that child, right? Maybe you are too busy, you don't have time for that child. You concern yourself with other things. And a child is a child. And if a child started to cry, instead of looking for a means to bring the child, right, to listen to the child, to dialogue with the child, right, because you are in a position of power. You are the father, right? You are the head of the family. You are in a position of power. So it's easy for you to whip this child and this child should stay quiet. But you don't know what you are building, right, in the life of that child. Such that at some point, maybe when the child grows up, then you will know that what you were doing 20 years ago, these are the consequences. Because you will not be surprised that now you want to talk with that child, and the child will measure himself with you. You know, sometimes we have the children, the young boys, sometimes they're even taller than their fathers. Their voices, their vocal are thicker than that of their fathers. And you will not be surprised that before you know it, it starts with you that he wants to box you. Why? Because this is what you showed him. This is what you showed him. All we need, I understand you perfectly. I understand you perfectly. If you want to bring it now within context, the current context, right? People have deep, right, historical grievances, current grievances. What do we do with that? Are we then going to use the cane? Are we then going to use the violence and so on them, right? I think all we need to do, just like with your child, we have to create that space. We have to create that platform that we can dialogue with one another. Just like what we finally had in 2019, the Grand Dialogue National. Let me put it in French, because many of us just speak French. The major national dialogue about the outcome or the effectiveness of that dialogue. That is not what I'm concerned about, but what I know is that finally we had some form of national dialogue. And that is what we expected from the very beginning. Are we together? So meaning that the preventive diplomacy aspect, right, was not taken into consideration. And we find ourselves in a situation whereby we are now struggling. We are reacting. We are doing everything and nothing is moving. We are together, right? I don't know if there's, let me see. And you talked about political elites, right? Political elites, of course. They're normally our parliamentarians and so on. The senators, the mayors, normally, they have to represent our interests at a higher level, right? But unfortunately, what we observe across many parts of Africa, especially south of the Sahara, is what? You know, we see during elections that these elites are very active, very people-oriented. And after elections, right, the people are forgotten in the hole, crying, shouting, nobody looks at them. So is that peace? We are not contributing to peace. I usually call such politicians bread and butter politicians. During that time, they will come and give you bread, they give you butter and eat, right? But at the end of the day, what happens? These are some of the things. So we have to do things differently. And we strongly believe because you fear God, you religious leader, you religious authority, because you fear God, you have to do things differently. You should not also be manipulated. Unfortunately, many of our religious leaders have also allowed themselves to be co-opted by the system that be. Are we together? We have to do things differently. We have to do things differently. This story is to me, I like it because I tend to see the extent to which high men of God sometimes allow themselves to be manipulated. I think 2 years ago, I traveled to Kenya under CEPCA, where I had to train some religious leaders in Africa. And one bishop got up, right, to relate his story that they were invited by the president's cabinet in Kenya, the former president, right, to come and pray. Pray for the cabinet, pray for the president, pray for the cabinet, right? And then his other church leaders, right, asked him. Everybody had to prepare their prayers, right? Ask him to prepare his prayer, write down his prayer clearly. Because they know him to be a bit somehow spiritually radical. Say, please, write down your prayer clearly. The bishop wrote his prayer, presented to them. They read it, they corrected it, they validated it. You see? And then they gave it back to him. And so when they went to meet the president, they met the president and his cabinet, they started praying. Everybody had already their papers written, right? And they were reading, praying and so on. Now when it came to his turn, right, he told us that he felt a certain spirit, right, that took him and he could no longer read. So he put it aside and just started praying and just started talking and so on. And there are some of the things that they did not expect him to say there. He said those things. And according to him, the president and his cabinet were so moved. And they were so moved. But surprisingly, after that, his colleague told us that, you, this man, you, what did we tell you? You go there and disgrace us. And so on and so forth. And they abandoned him there. Are we together? Why should they do that? Why should they do that? They have allowed themselves to be manipulated by the politicians. You have to do things differently. The lady?
No, I am the one. I have the microphone, doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I am going to take, that's two, apart from you, two more people. There are some two hands that have been suffering there for a long time.
Okay, doctor or professor, I am the Reverend Ajime Nelson.
The microphone is not too good. So it's
all right, Reverend Ajime Nelson.
Reverend, okay, let me put it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm the secretary to the Interreligious Forum for Justice and Peace in Cameroon. I am of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, and I serve as the secretary to the moderator of the peace. I have some comments, and then after that, a question. From your presentation, you had observed that for a long time, Cameroon has been known as a country of peace within the Central Sub-African region. That's true, but there is this worry that there can be some kind of manipulative peace, and we may just glory ourselves that we are living in peace. And I have a fear that we may be experts in that. Then I want to make a little contribution on what the Reverend Father Tatamboe said, which I was going to say it to in my own way. He had quoted Martin Luther King Jr., that there can be no peace without justice. And I've added a second qualification. To justice, I add love.
Okay.
There must be, first of all, love for oneself and love for the other person. That what you think is good to you is good for the other person. And it is on that basis that you can be able to exercise justice, giving to the other person what truly belongs to the person, and also taking for yourself what truly belongs to you. That I see as simple definition of justice. Then I move on with your presentation on diplomacy. There is the track 1 diplomacy and track 2, where we religious leaders and maybe civil society leaders fall in. And you also talked about the multi-dimensional tracks which any other person can fit in. At the same time, I want to make it this way. Some elites fall within the category of track 1. Track 1 is the government, and maybe the international call. But I come to this. When these things are categorized like this, when I see track 1, which is top up. And once it is top up, it connects to talk down from talk. Now, top up, and then top up. Top up.
Top up?
Yes. So that is track one. The track one.
Top down. Top down.
Top down. I'm saying that when they are top up there, they talk down on the people.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to establish here.
Good,
because they are top up there, they now talk down to the downtrodden and the oppressed. And those who are up there, track one, their concept every day is about peace. But those at the base, their cry every day is about justice. So there is a conflict here. So what are we going to do? Now, when we, the religious leaders, now fall in that hierarchy, are we not just merely playing the role of the track one people transmitting their ideologies of peace to the downtrodden? Do we have that role to play? So there's always this worry that we must largely listen to the downtrodden, those at the base. Now, I would have made more illustrations to this, but for want of time, I will say that we must, first of all, like the Reverend Father said, ensure that the conditions necessary for peace are put in place, being justice and love. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Reverend, for your concern. I think, like you said, I mentioned that, Cameroon has been known as a peaceful country for a long time, right? And you're right, but this is what is known. This is what is known generally, right? For the common man on the street, he knows that, Cameroon is at peace, generally. But now, when we come, to people with experience like you that have been working in the field and so on, you certainly notice that, right? Peace is not simply the absence of direct violence or war, right? Because you cannot say that somebody is living in peace when he hasn't eaten for 2 days, right? When this person hasn't eaten for 2 days, when this person has studied, he has a certificate, but he cannot use them. When this person is jobless, because peace has different dimensions. You have to be even psychologically at peace. Even psychologically. So peace is not simply the absence of war, what we know in the sense of peace as negative peace. But generally, the elites and so on, this is the kind of peace they know. Are we together? When we talk about peace at the level of that macro level, the top level, and so on, the elites, this is what they call peace. If people are not shooting at each other, then there is peace. Meanwhile, people are dying without shooting at each other. I hope that we are together. People are dying of hunger, joblessness, and so on, without shooting at each other. That is why one of the fathers of peace studies, Johan Galtung, says that, as a matter of fact, we have to go beyond negative peace to what he calls positive peace, which is not merely the absence of direct violence, but it should be the absence of all forms of violence. And we talk about all forms of violence, it can be cultural violence. In your culture, right, you can be violent towards each other. The absence of cultural violence, the absence of structural violence, psychological violence, plus what you said, love, social justice, equality in the society. These are the things. These are the things. And sometimes I even go beyond that because when we look at it, right, that positive peace, that includes not just the absence of war, but just social justice, equality, and the absence of all forms of violence, cultural, structural, I tend to look at this as simply an ideal, something that we can hardly, I can even put in quotes, never achieve. It is simply what? An ideal. So I usually prefer to speak in terms of human security. Human security. What are the elements of human security? In the Northwest, in the Southwest, in the extreme North, people sleep with their one eye open, one eye closed. True or false? Is that not it? Am I lying? We here in Yaoundé, we sleep and we snore. We snore several times in the night. In other places, people that don't have that opportunity, they sleep, their hearts are beating. One eye is open, one eye is closed. Why? Because they live in fear. So with human security, right, some of the pillars is freedom from fear. Freedom from want, the stomach. We don't want to see many hungry people. We have to feed them, right? Freedom from want, beggars, and so on. And thirdly, freedom to live in dignity. Everybody has to be respected, and that is possible. We can stop hunger, right? We can stop fear. But it is not very possible, right, for us to live totally with the absence of all forms of violence, especially structural violence. In our system, this kind of violence is inside. We don't even see it. And not even in Cameroon or so, even in the United States and other developed countries. So it's not all about Africa, right? So to me, it's just a way of always moving forward, always developing our thoughts. Thank you very much. I think two more people and we'll be concluding. Yes, okay, sir. After that, I'll take the lady there.
Okay. My name is Aristide Temga. I'm a pastor and also a journalist. I belong to ILCPS. It's an association working on peace and social cohesion. Okay, my question is it not time for Africa? My question is it not time for Africa to realize that evil face of some of our partners, like, let me say, those diplomatic representations? You know, it has been clearly shown that, for example, in that what we are involved in Northwest and Southwest region, there are many partners, there are many organizations, international organizations, there are many trade unions who finance some evil activities. And His Excellency President Paul Biya has clearly, during one of his allocution, talked about some foreign country who are not work in order to that situation to be resolved by permit those actors to live in their country. He was asking to those countries to help our nation to take part of the solution of this problem. Since now we don't have the good feedback, except maybe, let me say, a country like Nigeria who has done something. You know, is it not time for Africa to realize the evil face of some partner and, let me say, some diplomatic representative? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend and journalist. Of course, like you can notice, the dynamics of the global politics today, and especially regionalism, you will see that it is time, and Africa has already noticed it, that these guys may not be totally good friends. I'm not saying that they are enemies, but they may not be totally friends indeed and friends in need. All right? So if you look around it, you see what is happening in places like Mali, right? Where some of these people are now being chased. Something that was like an impossibility in the past, right? In Niger, we see some of these people call themselves colonial masters are being chased. We don't need you anymore. Because now, maybe we were living in some kind of false consciousness. Huh? False consciousness, to use the terms of Karl Marx. And then now, it's different. We are now living in the form of class consciousness. Our class as Africans, all right? We are now conscious of who we are. We are now conscious of our capabilities. We are now conscious of our resources. That now we are talking about African solution to African problems. So for sure, my dear friend, it has been a concern, but I think that Africans have realized themselves. That is why we have such terms today, African solution to African problems. So, and even when you want to divorce, which for us, children of God, it is more or less forbidden in the Bible. But even those who want to divorce, you don't just get up in the night, in the morning, you sleep over there, you get up in the morning and say, I want to divorce, right? It is as a result of accumulated grievances and so on, and it is something that is going to take a process. It is a process. If you do it abruptly, right, somebody can fall down and die. Are we getting it? But our leaders, our government are now conscious, and especially the fact that, because before in the past, it's as if there were no alternatives, right? It's as if the only choice they have is me, is you. I don't want to call names. I don't want to call names of countries, all right? It's like the only available choice for them was you or you. But today, we see other actors coming up. I can collaborate with you. I can do better things for you compared to this, right? It's a form of marketing. Huh? It is now becoming again like scramble for Africa. We see the Russians, we see the Chinese, we see they're all coming. But before, we knew only of one man or so, more or less. So, my friend, I think things have been done, all right? It is simply a process. Thank you very much. I will take the last person, the lady over there.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'm Nafisa Tame, Executive Director of Women Organization for Worldwide Islam. Okay, in your presentation you say that this sentence that we are supposed to be present as a peacemaker, not as a peace lover. So here is my question: how can we explain as leaders and CSO? How can we explain or arrange something if we do not love it? How can we help others to have peace, to be in peace, if we don't love something? The second question is, as leaders, religious leaders, how can we have diversity? How can we live and have peace in the world that does not accept us? If giving something to someone to want peace and forgotten yourself, does it make you at peace? Does it give you peace to not be yourself with others? Because maybe you have fear of not be recognizing, or fear of being identified as someone extremist. How can we arrive to understand and have peace if we keep our self, so that we will have peace and do not have problem? The third thing is that I want to know, as peace leaders, how can we make people understand that sometimes minding our own business can also remove other problems? so that we can have peace. Because since yesterday, I've listened to many presentations, many questions. I've also been thinking that maybe it's because we mind too much of other business for people business. That's what also can bring a war without peace. Maybe if we also, as religious leader, we preach to people that sometime minding our own business can also give peace. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, madam. I love your question. How can we be peacemakers without being peace lovers? Right? Without being peace lovers. Remember that in my presentation, I spoke about going beyond loving peace to practicing peace. Many of us, even, religious leaders, we preach peace. We preach peace. We preach peace. The question is, do we practice peace? There is no need to preach if you cannot practice, right? A child in the house, right, will learn better when it's what he sees his father does. My young boy, I have a boy of he just turned, he's in 9 or 10 years, a couple of days ago. These guys, sometimes I'm amazed. In fact, sometimes when we are praying, we are doing our devotion. Sometimes we will lean, maybe we are singing, we will lean, but when we want to start praying, when I come forward to, lean this way and pray, you will see him in fact, when I move like that, he also moves. When I move forward, he also moves forward. Just to tell you that he watches everything that I do. Huh? Not what I say, but what I do. So that is what I'm trying to say. For many of us here should be married, to be married. I know that women like to hear that, I love you. I love you. But love you without action. At some point she gets tired of I love you. Right? Huh? Do some action that demonstrates that you love her. Today is her birthday, you don't even know that it's her birthday. She's the one reminding you, and so on. And vice versa. Are we together? Going beyond love to actually practicing love. That is it. And then, let me see. Yeah, you talked about, diversity, the issue of diversity. Unfortunately, diversity to me is a resource to me. Diversity is a resource that we have to put in good use. Unfortunately, it has been misinterpreted and applied in many of our cases. Today, we find ourselves living in a relationship of us versus them. Us and them. Us versus them. We and them. Right? Not we. In-group, out-groups. This is our in-group. For example, if we are all Muslims here, for example, when they see a Christian come, people are careful. They look at each other. This man doesn't resemble us, and so on. Is that how we are supposed to live? And vice versa. Right? But what I know is that in the Bible, there are good stuff about peace and so on. And even in the Quran and so on, we can learn good things about peace. Why can we not accept each other? Right? So to me, the problem is not a diversity, but the problem is about what? Poor or bad management of diversity. That's what we talked about. Unity in diversity. We are united. But it doesn't mean that, well, if I come from this area or this area, right, I have to abandon who I am. I cannot refuse my identity, right? My identity remains, but at the same time, we are one because we are all Cameroonians. Are we together? Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, you talk about minding your own business and so on. I just want to tell you that this kind of people, in a general sense, are idle people. If you don't mind your business, you spend the time minding the business of others. While others are busy constructing their lives, you are looking on how to deconstruct it. It means, more or less, you are an idle person. Because if we are busy, if we are serious, I don't have that time. I don't have that time. But I also know people that they spend all their time, right, minding your business. But I don't have that time because there are so many things I have to do. Why should I sit and be saying, he has, they have, they are, they? No. It is idleness, and also because they are not lovers of peace. You have to first start by loving peace before you can practice peace. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to you all. Thank you so much for your kind attention. God bless.
Please, a big, big hand to Dr. Ari. Please. Many thanks, Doctor. You know your French is better than my English. So, so I will not go through in English. Yeah. Okay, that is just for all of us. So we were preparing to have a big panel, but we think that Dr. Ari have done it. Yeah, so it's the Lord. Actions is not for us. Thank you very much once more, Doctor. Thank you very much once more. Yeah, thank you. So now we are going to break into groups. What we have prepared is the same thing for all the groups. Je parle en français. But you know my name is John, so I have to speak English. Donc nous allons travailler dans les groupes maintenant. Et nous avons préparé la même chose pour tous les groupes. It's the same questions for all the groups. So that we work on it. And then after, we came and tried to give what we have done. So,
good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the live broadcast of the conference or the interreligious conference taking place at the conference hall of the Council of Protestant Churches here in Yaoundé. And of course, today is day two. That is practically made up of panel discussions and, of course, the do no harm approach of CEPCA that will be discussed today. We are at the hall, and right now preparing for group discussion, of course, fine-tuning ways to restore peace, fine-tuning ways to propose to authorities that be that they can restore peace is the major priority of the participants that are here present today, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the CEPCA TV team is right here to bring to you a live update what is happening at the Interreligious Forum. Just to let you know that this forum began yesterday with an opening, and today what's been so striking is that we've had already two presentations, or better still, one presentation, and we also received the president of the National Communication Council for Cameroon, Joe Chimoncho. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, much is still to come. We are calling on you to stay tuned, and we will be bringing to you minute by minute updates. In a few moments from now, we'll be having other participants to talk to us on how they've seen day two of this program.
Father Tata, Ebenye Marie-Françoise, Pasteur Temga, Madame Bedimou, Dena Julde, Aruna Muhammad, Abena Alain. That's our 4 groups. So.
The groups are going to reflect on the following questions. Comment prévenir et gérer les luttes de leadership dans les communautés de foi? What are the causes of leadership struggles in faith communities, and how can we prevent and manage them?
We'll give you the topic after.
Quelles peuvent être les piliers basés sur les écritures sacrées en faveur du vivre ensemble et la cohésion sociale. What can be the pillars based on sacred scriptures in favor of living together and social cohesion? Third question, in your opinion, why are the voices of religious and civil society not heard by political leaders? Selon vous, pourquoi les voix des religieux et la société civile sont peu audibles auprès des leaders politiques? What mechanisms should be put in place for initiatives in favor of peace and social cohesion by religious organizations and civil society in joint efforts? Quels mécanismes mettre en place pour des initiatives en faveur de la paix et la cohésion sociale par les organisations religieuses et la société civile dans un travail d'ensemble? And the fifth question, propose a legal form for a joint action approach by religious organizations and civil society, including a motto. Proposer une forme juridique d'une démarche d'action commune aux organisations religieuses et la société civile, y compris une devise. So we are going to serve you the questions when you will be in your groups. So group 1, I think here, outside. Okay, in the room, there's a room here, group 2 here, group 3 in the hall, and group 4 in the restaurant. Please, can we just go to our respective locations, and we're going to serve you the questions while seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, the participants are going for group discussion. And of course, we are expecting that after this, they shall be bringing to us resolutions from the different groups that will help in building a community of peace, in building a community free of guns, free of violence, free of brutality, free of home burnings and the rest that we have observed for the past 7 years and more in the northwest and southwest regions of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be having a participant to talk to us at this point in time. We just pay that, stay tuned, we'll get back to you.
Leaders of different religions have converged on Yaoundé to fine-tune ways to restore peace in crisis areas of Cameroon. This is taking place under the canopy of an interreligious forum organized by the Council of Protestant Churches of Cameroon, CPCC. The 3-day forum commenced on Tuesday, 11th of October and shall run through Thursday, the 13th of October. During the opening ceremony, the first Vice President of CEPCA, Reverend Dr. Z. Celestin, called on humans to practice the spirit of togetherness.
Je dis déjà merci pour l'initiative prise par le CEPCA de réunir autour d'une même table plusieurs confessions religieuses. Et comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure dans le mot d'ouverture, la guerre n'exclut pas ou alors n'évite pas les religions. La guerre, c'est pour les hommes et la destruction touche les hommes. Alors nous avons intérêt à nous mettre ensemble pour parler un même langage. Et c'est ce langage que Dieu entend. Parce que la guerre, elle ne peut être arrêtée que par la volonté de Dieu qui touchera le cœur des hommes pour que les choses changent.
Reverend Dr. Paul Ngando is the Secretary General of CEPCA, who thinks it's important for different religious leaders to come together to fine-tune ways to restore peace in our nation.
Le premier défi déjà, il était de mettre tout le monde ensemble, ce qui n'est pas toujours évident. Et il faut dire que les mentalités ont évolué. Aujourd'hui, les communautés religieuses évoluent maintenant, qu'elles soient catholiques, protestantes, musulmanes ou orthodoxes. Nous avons pris à bras le cœur les problèmes qui minent notre société. Et il est donc normal que nous puissions trouver des plateformes de dialogue pour pouvoir apporter notre contribution pour la paix dans notre pays.
The Reverend Letaka L.C. Bisong is the Executive Secretary for Communication and Information of CEPCA.
We believe that the church has a role to play in peace building. Jesus Christ says he is the Prince of Peace, and he told his disciples that I give you my peace, not as the world gives. And so we know that as children of God, we are supposed to be peace actors. And so we think that not just the Protestant churches, but all religious bodies in Cameroon, if we come together, our work will be impactful. That's why we are bringing all religious bodies in Cameroon together so that we can brainstorm and chart a way forward for peace building in our country. Like the Vice President said, war is caused by men, and God is above men. And so only God, by his power, can change the hearts of men to bring peace. And so we are praying that God will use men to bring peace in our country.
Bravo Satan, c'est bien. Mais dites-moi ces gens, en quoi cela est-il vraiment rassurant pour renverser cet ennemi? Présentez exécution.
Propager, proclamer dans tout le monde entier que Dieu, à travers le Christ Jésus, a renversé toute barrière sociale, raciale et religieuse afin que tous soient unis et indivisibles.
Aimer son prochain sans distinction de race, de village et même de rang social, comme Dieu a aimé le monde et a envoyé son Fils mourir